It's 2026 and some people still can't look up tariffs on Investopedia, so I'm here to look it up and add a little more exposure to it, because apparently it's needed. I saw a little spice on my take on the Supreme Court tariff ruling recently, and I believe everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but my opinion is that tariffs hurt the working class. As an ex-financial advisor, I know for a fact that it's hard for everyday people to save and invest without extra dollars. Everyday people meaning not centimillionaires and above. So I'm not going to give you a lot of opinions today, but I'm going to give you the literal definition of tariffs, how this works in real life, and a brief history lesson the last time it was used in similar setting and time period. If you disagree with me, cool, I'm okay with that, but at least disagree with the actual mechanics and not what's associated to it. Because tariffs are one of those topics where people argue about it because they heard it through some expensive grapevine or TV box while skipping the basics. Directly from Investopedia, a tariff is a tax imposed by one country on the goods and services imported from another country to influence it, raise revenues, or protect competitive advantages. Also from there, tariffs often result in unwanted side effects, such as higher consumer prices. Tariffs also have a long and contentious history, and the debate over whether they represent good or bad policies still rages today. For example, if a company imports $1 million worth of shoes and there's a 10% tariff on it, that's $100,000 in tariffs. With me still? Now, here's the part that makes people mad. It's not political, it's just accounting. The tariffs are paid by the importer at the border. The importer being the company that brings in the goods into the country, and the costs are often passed through as higher prices to the consumers. In a recent February 2026 Investopedia article, it, quote, says, "Nearly every penny ends up coming out of US consumers' pockets," end quote. Additionally, the New York Fed has found out that the recent tariff waves, US businesses and consumers bear most of the cost. So when people say we made them pay, well, yes, you did. You made all of us pay. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Supreme Court decision. It wasn't the court saying that tariffs were evil, it was saying the courts ruled that the president could use the IEEPA, which is the Emergency Powers Law, as authority to impose blanket tariffs during a non-wartime period. That was looking to have separation of powers and legal authority, questioning who has the power to tax and under what statute. Usually, Congress holds the authority to set federal taxes. And yes, the administration is now looking at the Trade Act of 1974 as a temporary blanket tariff of about 10%. That is all we know right now, and I'm not saying anything else because it's way above my pay grade. But what I can say is I like to read and I really like history because it rhymes a lot. So let's look at where we've seen tariffs before in the United States. This is not me being so dramatic. It's a lot of economists and historians pointing out to a combo of things that set up the stage for the Great Depression. Massive wealth gaps, a ton of stock market speculation, and a financial system with loose lending and weak regulations. The Roaring 20s were a lot of growth and a lot of fashion, but a lot of those profits and optimism got funneled into speculative bets, especially in stocks. Debts piled up and the whole system was more fragile than it looked. Sounds sadly familiar? And here's the part that people forget. Tariffs were already ramping up well before 1930. In 1921, you have the Emergency Tariff Act, mainly aimed at protecting farmers who were getting crushed by post-war competition and falling prices. Now, in 1922, you have the Ford-McCumber tariff, which raised tariffs to record highs on manufactured goods and farm products, including that American selling price approach that made protections even stronger. In the 1920s, still had a lot of prosperity, but those high tariffs helped trigger retaliation from Europe and contributed to decline of international trade. History's busting some repeat rhymes up in here, right? Basically, it set up the policy runway for even more aggressive protectionism later. By 1929, consumer spending started slowing, manufacturing output got hit, unemployment started rising, and then finally the stock market cracked in October of 1929. After that crash, confidence kept falling for years, but by 1933, the US unemployment hit about 25%, thousands of banks had failed, and you had real widespread economic misery. It was a global problem. In places like Germany, the economic crisis and unemployment helped fuel political extremism and instability, which is how a certain party gained power. History lesson over. I know it's boring, but some of us want to know how history works when it comes to civilizations, economy, and finance. Anyways, tariffs are not automatically dumb. They can be pretty useful tools. Now, you wouldn't use a jackhammer to etch a butterfly onto a glass mural. 3 examples of more defensible uses of tariffs are anti-dumping duties. When imports are sold far below fair value and to injure domestic industry, trade rules allow for responses. Now, this requires there to be a feasible alternative to the tariff import. Safeguard or temporary relief, short-term measures with clear rules and sunset dates. The big point being temporary, targeted, and not forever. Infant industry strategies, carefully applied, historically argued as the best way to help new industries scale, paired with a plan, time limits, and not blanket checks. If you heard what I'm saying, all of these have a underlying similarity, not targeted and temporary. So yes, tariffs are tools. If you got this far, here are 6 quick tips to navigate tariffs. 1, treat tariffs like a price shock, not a doomsday prophecy. I didn't do this to scare anyone, it's just to inform. Tariffs often show up as higher prices on certain goods or for slimmer company margins. Your move is the same as any inflationist moment. So try to update your budget with little prices are annoying right now buffer, and if you can, try to cut 1 or 2 low value expenses so you don't feel so squeezed. That might be helpful. 2, build a bigger you can't mess with me emergency fund. If tariffs are causing uncertainty, business pauses, hiring slows down, or even layoffs rise in certain sectors, aim for 4 to 8 months of essentials instead of 3 to 6. More if your income is commission-based or business-based. This is the best defense against any macro chaos. 3, don't panic buy, don't panic sell. Tariffs cause headlines, and headlines create emotional decisions. Panic buying locks in higher prices usually, panic selling locks in losses usually. If you're investing for years, short-term noise shouldn't be driving your long-term plan. Diversify like you actually mean it. Tariffs can hit some industries harder than others. Import-heavy retailers, manufacturers with global supply chains, exporters facing retaliation. A simple rule, avoid being over-concentrated in one sector, one theme, or one country, or one hot idea. Leverage broad diversification, US, international, stocks, high-quality bonds when appropriate. Reduce the possibility that one policy ruins my life. 5, rebalance instead of reacting. A tariff shock can make some parts of your portfolio drop and other parts rise. If you have target allocation, rebalancing on a schedule or bands, not on emotions. This forces you to buy low and trim high without pretending that you can predict Washington or the rest of the world. And 6, protect your cash flow before you optimize returns. If tariffs raise your cost of living, the win is stability. Pay down high interest debt, avoid new variable cost commitments, and build mini sinking funds for groceries, car expenses, and utilities so you stop getting surprised. 7, focus on what you control and not what you can't. You can't control tariffs or what governments do. You can control your spending rate, savings rate, debt levels, diversification, behaviors, and emotions. I know it's rough, but I know you can do it. I hope this was helpful, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe the $100 billion to $260 billion in tariffs that the Americans paid last year will get us out of the $1.8 trillion deficit that we racked up last year. If you're angry and upset, cool, I am too. Just aim the energy at learning first, do something about it second, and vent at a stranger afterwards. Thank you for watching. If you want more economics and finance with history and psychology, follow along. Drop a comment. Do you think tariffs are worth it if the prices rise, and under what conditions?